Can dogs talk using buttons?
Why are you mad?
2 years ago, I did a video on What About Bunny, the talking dog who uses buttons to speak human words. It is by far my most popular and unpopular video. It still gets thousands of views a day and hundreds of comments like, "You need to watch more videos." Is this person an expert in animal communication? She didn't even see all the clips. And one video with nothing but your educated opinion and a lot of ego. Fair. So let's look at more videos of Bunny the talking dog. Specifically, let's look at the mirror.
Did you just say, who this? And then look in the mirror?
And the thorn in the paw videos, because these are the two that everyone in the comment section says are the best evidence that Bunny is legit. I'm KP, a marine biologist who specializes in animal training and behavior. Should have said that in the video 2 years ago. And I'm going to address some of the criticism the last video received because I think that it is really important to talk about. Criticism like, dogs are smarter than you think. I'm sure everyone who watched this video now understands that dogs are dumb. Hashtag human supremacy. This video is so insulting to our animal friends. Do we really think they're that stupid? And how arrogant are you to think that humans are the only ones that can think and talk? I find these comments surprising because I never implied that dogs weren't smart. In fact, I explicitly said the opposite. And I'm not saying that dogs aren't smart, because of course they are. So to me, these comments reveal a very real hubris on the commenter's part, because they put forward the idea that a being is only intelligent if they have the ability to speak. Animals are incredibly smart in exactly the way that they evolved to be. The only reason that some select species have access to language skills is due to the highly social conditions that they evolved in, and that is in no way tied to their intelligence. I have many friends that are not as smart as some of the dogs that I've met, but dogs have never needed to use language, and so they didn't evolve it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe dogs can speak. Maybe the thorn in paw video is evidence of that. Quick disclaimer, this is my personal and professional opinion. We are not going to go harass other content creators for any reason in any way, shape, or form.
Where is your ouch? Where ouch? In your ear? Where, stranger? In your paw? Let me see your paw. Okay, I'm gonna put this down and check. This was the stranger in her paw. She's got a mat between her toes.
I see two red flags with this video that are why I personally don't see evidence of communication. One, it's edited in two very key moments. The first cut is right after Bunny pressed the ouch button.
Where ouch?
How much time passed between ouch and stranger paw? How many other buttons were pressed? Were there any failed attempts? Was it even filmed on the same day? We don't know. The second cut is more important.
Okay, I'm gonna put this down and check. This was the stranger in her paw.
We never see the thorn being removed from the paw. We have no way of knowing if the thorn came from the paw. There's a lot of missing context, and we simply can't ignore that. It's impossible to know if the video was cut just to remove dead air or to tell a curated story. My second concern is the definition of the word stranger. Here, stranger means a thorn. In other videos, stranger means a coyote or even a new smell. That's a common thing in these videos. Definitions are fluid and change meaning in order to be accurate. In another video, Bunny pressed the word bird, and that was interpreted to mean airplane.
Why concerned, Bunny?
Fast forward, so
Where's a bird?
how long?
Where?
I split this clip up because it was too long in the middle. She babbles a bit and I ask her to clarify. So, you see? Like that's not anything. It's just a story curated for social media.
Love you, Mom. Sound? Okay.
Recently, she seems to be using potty to signify a more urgent need to go outside, regardless of whether she has to potty or not. Again, there's absolutely no evidence of that. She could have just been like, recently she's tapping the love button, and that really means she really likes to go outside. Like, any button we can make that story work for. So that's not anything.
I hear an airplane.
Sorry. So you can start to see that there could never be a wrong answer when you use this method. This is something Bunny's owner has acknowledged. She said that she takes an errorless learning protocol because it creates less pressure and lower stakes. She assumes that Bunny is always communicating to the best of her ability, so when Bunny presses buttons that may not make sense, like with the bird/airplane video, she goes on a figurative treasure hunt to discover the meaning of the word bird.
I hear an airplane.
The problem with this errorless learning protocol is that failure is actually an integral part of learning. Picture a math student who was given the problem 3 times 3 on his math test. If he answered 6, then he clearly doesn't understand multiplication. But in the errorless protocol, you can hand wave it and say that he was just confusing multiplication with addition, and so he got the question right. But is he learning in this situation? And what if his answers change every time, and some of his answers are 100 million or love you, Mom, sound? He's not learning math in the same way that Bunny isn't learning language. Someone who uses AAC devices for nonverbal kids commented, "The Bunny videos are incredibly frustrating. They are not how you teach language. It's quite a leap to say that they understand each word unless they use it consistently and appropriately. Never mind using 2 words to convey complex meaning." Neuroscience News put it this way: some well-known research biases that are normally carefully avoided in formal scientific studies are not controlled for in these videos. In particular, the meaning of sentences produced by the dogs is often reconstructed by the owners themselves, and what is interpreted often seems to be whatever the owner wants it to be. And this is where we get really into the science behind verbal and nonverbal communication when it comes to canines. A 2016 study was done with highly trained water rescue dogs who were equally accustomed to verbal and physical commands. These dogs are trained to jump out of helicopters and rescue people who are drowning. For very obvious reasons, these dogs need to accurately and immediately, unerringly respond to their handlers' commands. The dogs were asked to perform 4 different actions: sit, lie down, stay, and come. But they were given contradictory verbal and physical cues. For example, being verbally told to lie down while given the physical gesture for sit. Just assuming that's what they use, sit. Results showed that dogs overwhelmingly followed the physical gestures rather than the spoken words. The data suggests that in dogs accustomed to responding to both gestural and verbal requests, gestures are more salient than words. Now, I'm not saying that dogs don't understand word associations that we teach them, because of course they can do that. A common example from my comment section is that most dogs know the word walk, and owners will often resort to spelling W-A-L-K so they don't excite their dog. This is an auditory association and is unrelated to the ability to speak. The difference between auditory association and the ability to speak is like the difference between throwing a frisbee and catching a frisbee. This isn't a perfect analogy, but you get the idea. Throwing and catching are 2 different and unrelated skills, even though dogs are masters at chasing down and catching frisbees. They can't throw them. They never evolved the ability to do so, whereas humans developed the ability to throw as a hunting mechanism, just like chasing a frisbee is similar to chasing down prey like rabbits or birds for dogs. There have been studies using EEGs and MRIs to measure brain activity in dogs when they hear human words. These studies found that dogs do not have the ability to distinguish similar sounding words. Walk, talk, chalk. if said in the same intonation and context, all likely mean the same thing to dogs. But what about Bunny? Don't these videos show Bunny using the buttons to express happiness and other emotions? I'm going to answer that question in part 2 when we take a look at the famous video where a mirror appears to give Bunny an existential crisis.
Did you just say, who this? And then look in the mirror?
Like, that feels very much like she set that up to tell this story, to make this happen. It's just a story. It's a really fun story. And, you know, it's a really neat idea.